Good evening, you're watching Eswatini TV News Bulletin at 8, read to you by Notilesi Tole. First up, let's have a look at tonight's headlines. The acting Minister of ICT has announced a new board of directors for the Eswatini Television Authority. 2 more days have been added to the No Plastic Bags campaign. The state is opposing former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini's bail application. And now the news in detail. The acting Minister of ICT, Mancoba Khumalo, has announced a new board of directors for Eswatini Television Authority. The board is led by Chief Sikunusa Dlamini, who is chairperson. One of the board's strategic imperatives will be to recruit a new CEO to replace the long-serving Bongani Austin Dlamini, who will retire from the organization at the end of this month.
Acting Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, Mancoba Khumalo, has announced new Eswatini Television Authority board members. These are Chief Sikunusa Dlamini, who is the new chairman, Prince Msindizwe, who is a member, Bertram Stewart, and Ndombifuthi Sugati, who are both members. The acting minister has also announced that 4 existing board members will continue to serve in the board, and these are Princess Ngenge Mxolisi Thokozani Nxumalo, and Mduduzi Nxumalo. Khumalo has thanked Princess Ngenge for acting as board chair for several months. He also thanked outgoing members of the board, namely Carol Ngobo, Mgibelo Tsela, and Andreas Dlamini, for their dedicated service. Khumalo has announced that one of the immediate tasks of the board is to recruit a new chief executive officer to replace long-serving outgoing CEO Bongani Austin Dlamini, who retires month-end. Khumalo also wished the board success. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela, Babane.
The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, has announced that from Thursday next week, retail outlets participating in the No Plastic or Phatha Sakho campaign will add 2 more days, which are Thursday and Monday, of not providing single-use plastic bags to shoppers. The minister made this announcement in a virtual press briefing, which was also attended by representatives from the country's leading retail outlets and other partners.
The Phatha Sakho or No Plastic Bag campaign was first introduced in Eswatini on the 4th of December 2020. This initiative is aimed at significantly reducing the use of single-use plastic bags by 90%. The Minister of Tourism and Environment, Moses Vilagati, however, says it would be even better for the kingdom to totally eliminate single-use plastics by the year 2022. Speaking in a virtual press briefing where he announced that Thursdays and Mondays will now be no plastic days, in addition to the already existing 3 no plastic days, which are Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. The minister spoke of the great benefits that Eswatini stands to benefit from eliminating plastics.
This is a gradual effort by His Majesty's government to ensure that we as a Maswati can eliminate up to 90% of single-use plastic bags in the country. The additional days will assist in stimulating behavioral change that we want to achieve with all Maswati in ensuring that Eswatini becomes one of the cleanest states in Africa.
OK Foods Eswatini Administration and Systems Manager Sanele Dlamini says shops participating in this campaign are fully committed to this cause.
We are very much committed in seeing this campaign through and seeing it all the way up until we get to a stage where single-use plastic bags are completely banned. And then finally, in terms of the response from our customers, with everything that brings about change, we have had 1 or 2 customers that were not too happy, but once we explained to them and gave them all the necessary information as to where we are coming from and where we are headed with this campaign, they all then were glad to jump on the bandwagon and understood.
Meanwhile, UNDP resident coordinator Shama Hussein points out the need for provision of sustainable alternatives to plastics like paper bags. Shops participating in this campaign include OK Spa, Boxer ShopRite, and Pick and Pay stores. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Muzim Konda in Babane.
The Minister of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs, Harris Bulunga, has encouraged members of the public and especially residents of Lamkapi area to follow proceedings of the late Minister of Labour and Social Security, Makhosi Vilagati's funeral on social media platforms where a live broadcast will be provided. Minister says few people will be allowed to attend the funeral so that all COVID-19 regulations are followed.
Following the passing away of the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Makhosi Vilagati, who succumbed to a COVID-19-related illness this past weekend, the Cabinet Ministers visited Lamkapi area where the Minister will be laid to rest tomorrow on Thursday to check on the proceedings and the preparations of his state funeral. Speaking on behalf of the ministers was the Minister of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs, Minister Harris Bulunga, who said they had met with the family and discussed the proceedings.
High School lapho umsebenzi utawuchubekela khona. Laba nje lesebenza nawo basatalihlobisa balicebe libe kahle ba set up netitulo tihlelembisa ngendlela yakhona tilandzele yonke lemigomo yokuphepha kuyo iCovid kokuthi kube nabo social distancing set up nabo sound system nako konke lokunye lokudzingekile sesibukile sente assessment yana lendzawo sibuka tindzawo tekuhlanzeka lapho abantu batawugeza tandla khona ema-toilets ngokuthi sibeke ema-toilets nema-mobile toilets la enough kube netindzawo lapho khona kutawusanitayizwa khona cishe konke sekuyahlangana ngoba nje nalaba labatabe basakatela wona lo msebenzi sebakanekisile sebathi sethile tinsambo tabo siyathandaza nje ngokuthi kubetele bese sekuyasibhedzela kulama hour lambalwa lasele wonke umsebenzi uhambe kahle sibonga nje support lesiyitholile kubo bonke lesicela ukuthi basibambise ekuhulungiseni umgwaco basibambisile belitiko letaka works.
Bulunga said the preparations are now at an advanced stage. He asked Lamkapi residents to follow the proceedings in the different social media platforms due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, they cannot come to the hall. Vilagati will be laid to rest tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the Lamkapi area. For Eswatini TV News, I am Kian MCB, Lamkapi.
Speaker in the House of Assembly, Petros Mavimbela, has passed his condolences to their Majesties, Cabinet and the Vilagati family on behalf of the Parliament on the passing away of the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Makhosi Vilagati. The Speaker says Vilagati will be remembered for being a hardworking man, both in his constituency and in his ministry as well.
Sendulisa nje emagama lamafishane ukuthi khalela nokuthi lilela ngekushiwa lilunga leParliament lenkundla kaLamkapi lebe iphindze futhi libe yinduna yembuso. Kafishane nje singasho ukuthi ngeke sihlale singawakhaleli emakhosi elive inkosi Mswati kwesithathu kanye nayo Indlovukati ngani ngobe umhlonishwa Vilagati abesavele angumfana wabo emakhosi. Ngitawuthi nje Nkosi yami ngikhalele kakhulu inkundla yakaLamkapi nathi thina bemhlambanyatho ngobe kathi angumakhelwane wethu lo besathi nje ukuthi nawo betinto tisuka kaLamkapi tiyenqa tiyofika emhlambanyatho simkhalele boba betikhulu bantu babenkosi kwekuthi bekunene benikhokhile induku ukuthi ihambe iyowakha live kodwa lo mubi wase uyachamuka so vele sohamba ngembili siyakhalela ke kuleso simo leso. Ngitawusho ukuthi umhlonishwa Vilagati abengathi umuntu bekathi akhuthele endlini eParliament abeta abesebenza imibutho lebekatsa buta yona abeyiphendula lapho angakhoni khona umuve acele emalungeni esawo mane ningenike desithuba bekuthi ngiyothathisa impendulo ngitatibuyisa njengenduna bekaze incane bekaze asebenza nje ngokuthi ikhandla siyiphalamende siyatikhalela kakhulu singathemba nje ukuthi Nkosi yami nalapho akhona khona wavilakati kungasangalala ngekuthula inkosi beyisiphile inkosi seyithethe siyabonga.
Business Eswatini, in collaboration with Coca-Cola and Eswatini Beverages, has donated 76,000 emalangeni towards the fight against COVID-19 in the whole region. Business Eswatini's Chief Executive Officer Inati Dlamini says the organization will continue to support the government in the fight against the pandemic.
The Ministry of Health reports that numbers of people testing positive for COVID-19 continues to rise in the whole region. This has led to Business Eswatini and Eswatini Coca-Cola Beverage to combine efforts and donate towards the fight against the pandemic with different material and beverages. Business Eswatini's Chief Executive Officer Nati Dlamini says everyone should play their role in fighting against the spread of the virus.
Angdo presenter kuwe nangema beverages la worth 40,000 rand.
He says 40,000 emalangeni worth of beverages has been donated by Eswatini Coca-Cola Beverage, whilst Business Eswatini donated material towards the fight against the pandemic worth 36,000 emalangeni. He says the donations include masks, blankets and sanitizers.
Nangane sanitizer konke ke lokwethu nasukubala sekukonke kung 36,000 ngabalulu koma sanitizer.
Accepting the donation on behalf of the Regional Administrator Princess Tanzile, the Regional Secretary Sibusiso Dlamini says it will go a long way in helping the region's task team. He says the mask will be helpful since some people do not wear them, saying they cannot afford to buy them. On Monday, the whole region had recorded 6,234 people who had tested positive for COVID-19, whilst on the day the country recorded 14,484 cases of the pandemic. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Nelson Ndlangamandla with Muzim Konda in Babane.
The Crown says former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini should not be granted bail because Lamkapi area where the accused hails from is known for the use of hitmen or assassins. Dlamini was arrested for the alleged murder of 2 men and the attempted murder of another at Lamkapi area. The Crown has since filed its opposing papers in the matter.
In the Crown's opposing papers and the former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini's bail application, the state claims that the affected community is still angry by the accused alleged actions. This is contained in an affidavit deposed by investigating officer in the matter, Shelton Mtetwa, who said it was highly likely that the community would revenge against Dlamini if he would be released on bail. Dlamini was arrested for allegedly shooting and killing Themba Tsabetse and Sikhulu Shongwe. He is also charged with allegedly attempting to murder Simon Dlamini at Mhlabubovu, Lamkapi, last year. Mtetwa told the court that Lamkapi area is known for the use of hitmen or assassins as it is near the borders of South Africa. He claimed that the borders are not clearly guarded and there was an unrestricted flow of persons to and from the neighboring country. Mtetwa submitted that Dlamini had no defense to the charges against him. He told the court that the Crown would parade sufficient evidence to prove a case of premeditated murder by the applicant. Mtetwa told the court that on the day of the incident, Dlamini phoned the Punya police station commander and informed him that he would spill blood. He also told the court that the Crown would prove that Dlamini was an aggressor on the day in question and came armed and already had the intention to kill. Tetra claimed that Dlamini's defense of self-defense was too far-fetched in the circumstances. He submitted that there was a video of the accused which was taken during the ordeal. Tetra told the court that on the day in question, Dlamini was in the company of Derek Mazia and Sipho Matsenjwa, who will be state witnesses during trial. He added that Dlamini might interfere with Crown witnesses. Also deposing an affidavit was Lamkapi Invuna Mandla Mavuso. Mavuso submitted that he believed that Dlamini's life would be in danger if he could be seen in their area. Mavuso submitted that he had nothing against Dlamini. He claimed that during community meetings, he reminded residents that he had 2 guns when things were not decided in his favor. Tetra also claimed that Dlamini did not abide by decisions of the royal crawl, but boasted that he was a prince. The veracity of these allegations is yet to be tested in court. Dlamini is represented by Noncedo Dlangamandla in the matter. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela, High Court.
The pile of soil and rocks on the MR3 highway along the Malakwane Hill is currently being cleared in a section of an area known as Goldplat. Road clearance activities compelled vehicles to temporarily share one side of the road this morning. Police, in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Works and Transport, were found on the ground of the road clearance work.
Since this morning, police have been warning motorists about traffic not flowing as normal on the MR3 highway today. This was because of works that had to be done or carried out next to an area popularly known as Goldblatt, where a pile of sand had been washed into the fast lane, which disturbed traffic flow. We found police as early as 9 a.m. already preparing to redirect traffic to open way for heavy plant machinery that would clear the road. In the afternoon, the heavy plant machinery was seen clearing up the pile of sand and cars having to share the 2 lanes channeling traffic to Mbabane. Mbabane Police Station Head of Traffic Inspector Kenneth Mavimbela tells us how they worked.
ukhona nje lapho kusaphambana khona kodwa nje sisakulunga singasho ukuthi imoto leti ngulunyalo ama-truck lamakhulu siwanisibana sekuyaphela lokuthi kube highway so siyanceda lokuthi imoto leti kulungela sima siza futhi nabashayeli besisensibani inyakwanyalo nje labasiqonisile sisasebenzeka kangcono kakhulu.
Trucks were stopped from driving down the Malakwane Hill to avoid congestion. It was gathered that some trucks were stopped at the Ngwenya border gate. However, those that had already started driving downhill were given way to proceed to their destinations. At the time of compiling this report, Ministry of Public Works and Transport senior officials had not arrived at the site and comments could not be sought. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela, Malakwane.
The Ministry of Education has commissioned micro-projects to assess different schools around the country to determine the extent of damage caused by the heavy rainfalls caused by Tropical Cyclone Alois in the country. Micro-projects Director Sibusiso Mbingo says, for now, 12 schools have been reported to have been affected by the cyclone.
The recent cyclone which hit the country since the weekend left a trail of destruction and schools were not spared. Micro-projects Director Sibusiso Mbingo says they have started visiting the schools to determine which form of assistance will be needed. Mbingo details their work plan towards refurbishing the schools.
Well, we can report that we have received information which has been gathered by regional education officers, particularly from 2 regions, Lubumba region and Chiswani region. Particularly, we can also state that the Chiswani region was the most affected in terms of the previous storms which the country experienced. In total, we've got about 12 schools which were affected. 8 of them are primary schools and 4 are high schools. As stated, we have received reports from the regions and we have dispatched teams from micro-project, that is building inspectors who are currently conducting assessments of the damage and costing the damage. But we can also safely say that the Ministry of Education has given micro-project the permission to basically start or commission renovations of those affected schools. And we are continually receiving the reports from the regions. But as of now, we're pursuing 12 schools. Predominantly affected region is Eswatini.
He urges schools who were hit by the cyclone to report to the regional education officers to get assistance. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Nelson Ndlangamandla with Muzi Mkhonda in Babane.
The High Court has sentenced the man who killed former Eswatini Post and Telecommunications Corporation Board Chairperson Fanuel Vilagati to 23 years in jail without an option of a fine. The sentence has been delivered by Judge Mzwandile Fagutse today.
Judge Mzwandile Fagutse was in court today to deliver a judgment on Sibusiso Sandile Malinzisa murder trial. Malinzisa was found guilty of murdering former Eswatini Post and Telecommunications Corporation Board Chairman Fanuel Vilagati in 2018 and did this by hacking him with a slasher all over the body. Malinzisa was employed by Vilagati to work in his farm. In sentencing, the court said it considered a lot of factors. One of this is that Malinzisa has been found guilty of a serious offense of murder. Another is that killing of the deceased was brutal, as evidenced by the post-mortem report, which states that the fatal wounds were severe and were as a result of a sharp and deep cut to the body. The court says although Malinzisa raised the defense of provocation, evidence tendered by the Crown established that there was no provocation. It said it would take into account the sentencing trends of local courts in similar matters as well as the circumstances of the matter at hand in imposing a proper sentence. The court also said it took into account that the accused is a sole breadwinner at home with 8 dependents, including his old-aged mother who is sickly. It said it further took into account that the accused is a first offender and relatively young. It further considered that accused counsel submitted that there was evidence that showed that the deceased provoked the accused, further stating that there were arguments between the accused and deceased pertaining to missing fertilizer. The court then sentenced Malinzisa to 23 years imprisonment without an option of a fine. It said the sentence would take into account the period the accused spent in custody to the conclusion of the trial. Malinzisa was represented by Sanele Mabila in the matter, while the Crown was represented by Tulani Mamba. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela, High Court.
The Eswatini Environmental Authority urges the people of Eswatini to fill back land which has been degraded by the recent cyclone. This is a plea made by the authority's Environmental and Communications Officer Belusile Mhlanga. Mhlanga said the authority is exploring ways to address this environmental challenge.
Last year, the Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Affairs gave out 2 million emalangeni under the Environment Fund towards community projects, most of which were for restoring degraded land. However, according to Belusile Mhlanga, an environment officer at Eswatini Environment Authority, the recent cyclone has caused a major setback in these projects.
The recent cyclone has worsened the situation. Looking at what is happening on the ground, last year before disbursing the fund, we knew that we had just given communities money to just contain the land degradation, but even then it was not enough. Following the cyclone, we are expecting more requests on the Environment Fund. We request Eswatini to do backfilling in order to prevent further degradation of land, since there is a possibility of more rains which can further exacerbate the current problem.
She says this will be incorporated in the State of the Environment report in order to inform decisions and interventions. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Nelson Ndlangamandla with Muzi Mkhonda in Babane.
Good evening once again. You're still watching Eswatini TV. Now we'll have a look at our sports news. A secretary of the Eswatini Volleyball Association, Nonophile Dlamini, says players will find it hard to compete effectively when the time comes for them to participate in international competitions, since they have been idle for a year. Dlamini says players will need time to regain form and fitness to compete with their international counterparts.
Volleyball teams are one of the teams that usually represent the country well whenever they play outside the country. Ladies' correctional team at some point won the Region 5 competition, which gave them the ticket to compete in an African tournament, but the lack of funds ended up not honoring those games. The continuously good showing of local teams was even starting to catch some eyes in Africa as a whole. But the coronavirus outbreak is threatening all the good work that has been done. The Volleyball Association is even afraid that they will be behind everyone in the region when they resume with their games. Secretary of the association, Nonophile Dlamini, says it will take time for them to reach the same level that they reached before the COVID-19 outbreak.
When we go back to international activity, or even rather national activity, it will be very difficult because players have been idle for quite a long time. So ready. It will need a lot of preparation from the coach and as well as the players' mindset. Also, Nanasi is volleyball affected in terms of international activity. It will take us some time to go back and participate and compete fully because of the idleness. Players will need a lot of preparation. It will take us some time to go back and participate and compete fully because of the idleness. Players will need a lot of preparation. In terms of the players, now we understand they are idle, but we appreciate that some of the players are self-disciplined and they are training by means of jogging.
Dlamini encourages all volleyball players not to give up on their trainings, but to keep going and also make sure they follow all the required precautions put in.
And with that, we sum up our bulletin for the evening. Up next is the weather update from